Hey, good day YouTube. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's your first time. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and look what I picked up today. You know, I just can't stay off of Craigslist, and this little Honda EM600 generator popped up. It said didn't run, $40. Well, what the heck? It's wasn't exactly on my way home, but I just kind of made it on my way home, so I text the guy and yeah, swing by and grab it. So that's cool. He goes, and by the way, I got it running. So, well, that's not always a good thing, but when I got there, the gas didn't smell horrible, and he did crank on it a bunch of times, and he did get it running. It kind of ran okay, but I don't like a few things that I'm seeing, so I'm not really going to run it. I haven't run it since I brought it home, but which I just brought it home an hour ago. It almost looks like someone throws some new oil in on top of some really ugly oil and some stuff like that. So let's just do a basic service on this thing. I don't think there's any risk that we're going to do something that we're going to regret as far as, you know, it's not going to work afterwards. Let me grab a Phillips screwdriver real quick. We'll pop a few covers off of it. He did mention that it had some screws missing, so it's got like 2 on each side now. No big deal, they're metric screws, but I got some of this stuff, so we'll be able to put screws on it. These weren't tight. That one's head is about stripped on this one. And we're just going to dump the oil out right now and kind of look it over a little bit. It looked pretty decent. It didn't look like anybody been monkeying with stuff. So I had a green one, a 1972 version EM400, way back in the day. Great little generator. I used to sit on the back seat of my motorcycle and put Christmas lights on for light parades and stuff like that. When we first bought it, we bought a cabin in Central Oregon, up in the hills off the grid, and that thing used to power our cabin, our lights, even the little TV and cooler and things like that. Okay. So to get the oil out of these things, there's no drain plug underneath there. You just dump it out. So I've set up on my fab table here my Hall Master, my Harbor Freight aluminum step. I'm going to try to do this without getting dirty. I got a birthday party to attend here in about 40 minutes, so hoping for the best here. No gas flying out of up here. That's good. It does have gas in it. Well, the oil doesn't look as bad as I thought it might. Actually looks fairly decent, so that's good. But you never know. Oil's cheap, and these things don't even hold like a half a quart or something. I don't remember the exact capacity. You just kind of fill them up till they're full, but the oil light was blinking. There's an oil warning light on this model, and it was kind of blinking a little bit. So I thought, let's just change it. We'll put some decent oil in it. Go from there. So we're just going to let this thing, well, I don't need to worry too much, I think, about draining every last drop out of it, because I'm going to probably run it and change it again anyway. That's just what I like to do, is get all the junk out of it. So let's just go with that and go from there. Alright. Let me stick you on pause here for a second. I'll grab some oil, and I use a syringe for putting the oil in it. You can use what you want, but I can't really see around a funnel, so that's how I do it. Give me a second, and I'll turn you right back on. Alright, we're back. I was just looking on my shelf what I have for motor oil. So, I mean, I go to a lot of yard sales, and people have a quart of oil for 50 cents or $1 or something on this decent. I'll grab it. And so I have this, it's 2540 Merc Cruiser 4-cycle for inboard engines, etc., etc. And I just peeled the seal off of it, so it's new oil. I'm not going to run it very long anyway, so let's just use this. Oil. at least for this purpose. So I wish my syringe would go down the neck of this thing, but it don't. And it's pretty thick, so yeah, I'm as cheap as they come. Said it before, right? I was gonna use a half a quart of oil, only paid 50 cents for or something, right? For just doing a clean out of this engine will probably we'll probably throw some additive in the engine too, just to clean it out a little bit. I just didn't want to run it with what was in there. As it turns out, it was okay, but I didn't trust it. So we're doing what we're doing here. Oh, by the way, it's still freezing out, so it looks like I'm toasty warm, but I'm kind of temperature neutral anyway. But so this oil's pretty cold. It's I don't know, probably 30 degrees outside right now. Yeah. Little more. I didn't even take time to look it up, see how much oil this thing takes, or I don't have that little 400 watt generator anymore, but I do have a replacement spark plug for it sitting on my shelf. It's the littlest thing you've ever seen. It would be cool if this took the same plug, because I had to have no other reason to own that spark plug. And it's been on my shelf for 15 years probably. Every time I get a piece of equipment, I buy extra spark plugs and filters or whatever it takes and keep on the shelf. That might do it. Let's look. Yeah, that'll do it. Now we'll start it. Now we can start it. Oil looks good. It's nice and full all the way. Hopefully that oil alert light stops blinking. Come on. I had trouble with this plug earlier today, so I hope it don't fight me. It doesn't want to go in straight. There we go. All right. There we go. Making sure you're still in frame there. Let's fire it up. Call it a cold start on. Is there a choke on this boy or not? Definitely turns the gas on. I don't think so. I was thinking there was a choke on the one I had, but it's been so long I can't remember. All right, fire in the hole. Still blinking. Put a meter on it. So this thing is running too fast. So I suspected there was going to be issues with it because the guy mentioned something about it, and he didn't. He looked more like a shade tree mechanic. So it does have a little like a fine-tuned adjuster knob here, but it wasn't doing much. So I've got a real throttle issue to look into. So we're going to have to peel covers off of this thing, find where the throttle is, probably the whole governor setup, and figure out why this thing is revving to the moon. Yeah, because it shouldn't. Now this is old school, so it does not have, you know, electronic governor or anything like that in it. It just runs, and you set the speed that it runs, and you can kind of match the voltage, you know, 117 volts, something like that, under a reasonable load. And that's how fast it should be revving. If you have a meter that has a cycle counter on it, so you know if it's running 50 hertz, 60 hertz, should run 60 hertz, but they're at least close to that. So let's turn this around. Here's the throttle stuff here. Let it fall off my table. This is the governor. Let's start it back up and watch this. Let me see if you can see it, if I need to zoom it in there a little bit. Second, I gotta take my gloves off to zoom this a little bit. There we go. So we have an issue with this throttle here, and maybe it's just because it has that bend in it, but let's start it up and see which way the throttle needs to go to slow this down. It's kind of hanging on the edge here on my table. A little better. All right. Wasn't that the silliest thing you ever seen? I was pulling the throttle all the way and nothing was happening. You didn't think for 40 bucks it was going to be perfect, did you? Alright, let's go in a little deeper. I'm going to grab a 10 millimeter. What do we get right here? What do we have? 10 millimeter. Half the metric world is 10 millimeter. Including this. So, pop her open here. Once you get the tins off, it's really the structure, outer structure of this thing. That's all there is to it. Tins just all bolt together. Another one down here. So I was rolling the throttle all the way in both directions, and it continued to run at exactly the same speed. I gotta say, I've never seen that before. It didn't even change. So I don't know what's up. But it's definitely running too fast. Both AC and DC voltages are way too high. Backyard mechanics. As long as it operated. That's alright, we'll fix it. Oh boy. This would be air cleaner here. That'd be like a drain down situation. All right, I'm going to take this apart a little farther and turn you back on when I find something. You don't need to watch me just take screws out. So we're going to have to dig into that carburetor a little deeper. Back in a bit. Okay, we're back. So I was fiddling with this linkage right there. Turns out that's the choke, not the throttle, which I should have learned because that is like a bimetallic spring right there next to the cylinder. So I was wrong. That is not, and it wasn't making any difference while it was running. So here's the governor throttle system right there. And my guess is some Einstein screwed on that adjustment screw there, something terrible. So what I really need to do now is, now that I see the screw, got to figure out a way to get to it while it's running and figure that all out. So I'll endeavor to put this thing back together a little bit and watch my accessibility to that screw. Surely I will be able to run it and adjust it just by using a voltmeter with a small load. So I'll plug something in that maybe draws, 150, 200 watts. Here I am staring at my grinder here. What does this thing draw? Does it tell me? Does it tell me? It does. It's probably too much for it, for what I'm hoping for, a couple hundred watts. So, but I'll find something, maybe draws a couple hundred watts. We'll dial it in to 117, 118 volts, like that. So that's the plan. So let me put this thing back together. I got a boogie, so we'll pick this up. For you, it'll be about 2 seconds. For me, it'll be tomorrow. Catch you later in a minute. Okay, it's about 4 hours later. Back from my birthday parties, and it's about a little after 9 o'clock. And I had a little bit of time to reflect on this, and I said I was going to put this all back together, then try and adjust that screw. Well, that's just silly. I figured out, and you probably figured out by now, that's what somebody did to make this thing run. So the idle circuit, low-speed circuit, is no doubt plugged in the carburetor, and somebody just cranked on the thing until they made it run without dying. So it's just like floored right now. It's just wide open. So the idle circuit's not functioning. So I will not put it back together. I will, in fact, take it back apart or finish getting it apart and take the carburetor apart and get it cleaned out, clean the jets out of it, put it back together, and then we'll adjust that screw back down. And this little puppy's just going to run great. So perfect. So actually it looks pretty good inside. We'll get it cleaned up and presentable. But for now, I think it's bedtime, and we'll maybe pop back after work tomorrow and take that carburetor off and clean it up. We'll make this thing run right yet. So there you go. Jump to conclusions, and glad I stopped to think about it for a little bit. Saved a little bit of work. Okay, for me, see you in about 20 hours. For you, about 2 seconds. And we're back. It's the next day, about 20 hours later, Thursday, after work. So this thing did not fix itself overnight. It did not, carburetor didn't fall off, clean itself up, put it back, and put it all back together. So we're going to have to dig in and make it happen. So I've had many of these apart. These are pretty similar. This generator is like a 1984 model, but I had, like I mentioned earlier, like a 72 model, very similar. The modern ones, they are also similar. I even had a 1,000 watt Yamaha earlier this year. I think I did a video on that. The carburetor looks very similar. It goes on with these long studs. I almost called them 1/4-inch studs, but obviously this is metric. So all we need to do is get this choke linkage off, get the throttle linkage off, and the fuel line off. This is just a vent tube. It goes to nowhere. And we'll get that carburetor off. We'll take it over the bench, flip it over, and see how much garbage is in it. But we already surmised that the low speed or idle circuit and this thing doesn't really idle, so we're just calling it a low-speed circuit, is plugged. Let's zoom in a little bit. We'll get you dialed in here. And then let's take this puppy apart. I don't know if it's better if I plug my super bright LED light in here or not. How does that work for you? About the same? Okay, it helps me. I'll leave it on. So, get the choke linkage off. Should be pretty easy. Turn it. There we go. Set that up there out of the way. If y'all don't have a set of these come in a set of 3 at Harbor Freight. They're Pittsburgh. They are for pulling fuel lines and stuff off. And you know, I was just in there the other day, and they have a set of these on sale right now for $10. They're regularly like 15 or something, 14, 15. And they're on sale for $10. And I meant to grab a set, and I forgot them. I might get in there yet tonight and get another set of these, because I have one in my solar shed and one set in here. Sometimes they get separated because I work on little engines out there too. So let's get the fuel line pulled. Been on there a while. Little assist with a screwdriver, and there we go. She's dripping a little. This has a valve on it. So when you turn the lever on and off, it cuts the ignition and the fuel. So I don't think too much will drain out of that. Let's just get the governor linkage off. I think it just pries up and away. That's it. That's all there is to it. I mean, you pull these things quick. Don't be intimidated. Just be careful there. I don't have a gasket for this thing, so whatever's back there I want to save. Looks like it's all clear. Pry carefully. Usually they just slide right off. There we go. Oh. There's another tube at the bottom that I didn't see. It's a bowl drain. That's why it was hard to move. Yeah, I was dragging that thing with it. The tube should be more pliable than it is. I'm just gonna get a side cutters or something and cut that off. I'll have to put a new one on it. Or maybe I just cut it at a minimum just so it will clear. Again, it's just the bowl drain tube. There. Pretty crispy. Falls right off now, doesn't it? I should have looked. I shouldn't have been so... Boy, there's a lip right there. I'm going to have to cut it shorter yet. Shouldn't have forced it. Okay. So, there's Carburetor. Let's take it over to the bench. Put you on pause. Okay, we're back. Let's see, we're going to have to have a little wrench on that. Is that about a 12? Yes, it is. There's that O-ring gasket that gets it up to the block, so I want to be real careful with that. I'm going to grab a towel here. Kind of absorb the gasoline, if you will. Did I break that loose yet? I didn't, did I? Wasn't horribly tight. You can kind of use these towels as like a coffee filter to see how much garbage it collects. So there's that. Well, I've seen a lot worse. There's a little junk in there, but it's not bad. We'll pop the float. Look at that little needle. Isn't that cute? Yeah, there's a lot of junk and stuff in here. So let's pop the main jet out. My favorite screwdriver for that I have over here. Pull the main jet out. Be real careful with these. If the screwdriver doesn't fit well, get one that does. This is typically my favorite for doing this. Yep, there we go. Didn't fail me. It's long-winded. It's a coming though. Okay, we'll dump it out on the towel here and see if there's anything in behind it. There it is. So this is like the main jet, and let's see if I can see anything through it. I do not see through it, but we ain't done yet. Sometimes down in there is another jet, and I don't know if this one comes out or not. See, can you see that in there? If it doesn't come out, we have to kind of clean it in place there. So that's the deal. Yeah, I think it comes out. I don't know if this is the right screwdriver for that now, because it's a little one. And I guarantee that's the one that's plugged. I'll bet. I said I guaranteed it, so I can't bet. Find a different screwdriver. What do we got? I'm not sure now that that has a screwdriver slot in it. Don't think it does. Okay, well, I'm gonna get the a drain pan out and kind of put this in, and just get this thing all sprayed out, blow it out with air and so forth. You guys have seen that. You don't need to watch me do it. And I'll turn you back on in a little bit when we're ready to put it back. Okay, I got everything sprayed out. I've got everything blown out with the air compressor. A couple things that I think we need to address here real quick before we go too far with this is the return spring here that's wrapped around. It doesn't have much authority, and this isn't really closing like it ought to. It's kind of closing, but it doesn't always. I think we need to pull that one more wrap around. I think there's all the evidence that this has been monkeyed with before, so I'm pretty sure somebody might have pulled that off, or maybe just the spring got weak over time. So it's always risky, isn't it? Messing with these itty bitty springs. Let's see what we can do. I don't want to grab that spring at the end because I don't want to take the curl out of the hook. You know what I mean? I got a better pliers. What do I get? Gonna have to clean up some tools with one of these days. There it is. This is the one we're looking for. We can grab a hold of that. Dog. Come on around, my friend. Uh-oh. It's not looking too good. I think it's tight. Let's hook it there, see what happens. Oh, maybe that's where we're supposed to be. Ah, now it returns with authority. So what I did was, I thought I was going to take it a whole revolution around from, it was hooked here, but what I did is brought it halfway around and hooked it here. That actually looks better. And now it returns with authority. So that's good. So now these fuel lines are pretty crispy. Oh, look at that, it just falls off. Let's get these replaced. So I got some fuel line here. Yeah, the best place to get this kind of stuff, at least in my world, is online. So having a bunch of this around, if you're working on this kind of stuff, you really need to think ahead and stock yourself up with these items, like this small fuel line. And we'll just cut it slightly longer than it is. So there's that one. I need to find this clamp. Throw it on the floor. Out with the old, in with the new. We'll slide it a little bit farther back. So remember, this is that vent tube. This one, it's kind of cold out. It's, I don't think it got to 40 degrees. So, we might have to heat that up. Heat gun. I might bump into you here, because my heat gun's in the bottom drawer. I gotta put you back where I found you. There we go. I grabbed my little torch, but I got a lot of gas right there. That's probably not the best idea in the world. So, we use the heat gun. A little safer. Plug it in, plug it in. We'll just heat the end of it, warm it up a little bit, make it pliable. We'll see if that's enough. We'll see if that's enough. Feel better. There we go. Goes right on there now. So we use our miniature needle nose to slide that clamp back on. Okay, vents in place. Let's just do this while we're doing it. This was that drain that drains the bottom of the bowl that, you know, I forgot about. I was wondering why the carburetor was coming off so hard. It's because this fuel line was crispy. We're talking original equipment there. I might have to heat this up to get it off. Force this stuff and break it, and you wish you hadn't. Woo-hoo. Bing. Bing. Nice and warm. There's that one off. Kind of overslide it a little bit. We're just going to make this just a little extra long. I can always shorten it, right? But you can't add to it. Do that. Will that slide on, or I got to heat this back up again? Well, it's going. There we go. Get the clamp on it. And there we are. Here's your sign. As Mr. Ringball would say. There's your sign. Okay. This had 2 gaskets on it. That's telltale. Somebody's been in here. Junk. Let's reassemble. It's all, like I said, I've got it all blowed out, sprayed out, everything flows. If this thing doesn't work the first time, I'll edit it out, and you'll never know. Sometimes you can get a little piece or something that'll hide, fly back in there. I've done these up to 3 times to get them clean. Sometimes they'll fight you. Okay, snug. Don't over tighten it. Oops, float fell off. Float fell off. The needle fell off. Slide her back on. I never get carb cleaner on your rubber tip on your float. It won't work again. This one was working fine. Continue to work fine. Come on. Work with me here. There we go. And finally the cap. Cleaned up real good. No issues. It's down in the groove. Get this tightened up. 2 gaskets mean it was leaking or bottoming out or something at some point, and somebody put 2 gaskets on it. Well, I hope it will work again. And then turn off the valve. Okay, we're ready to go put her back on. I'll go ahead and do that and check back with you in a little bit. Alright, got the carburetor back on, got this stuff all buttoned up. I did loosen the valve right there, which lets the fuel flow out the fuel bowl, just to be sure it was getting fuel, because I got it all turned on. That works out okay. I put the all the air cleaner stuff back together, and somehow or another I've got to be able to get to that screw in there. Come on. Right now I can't even see it. Is that it? No. Dang. So, I don't know what to say about that. It's like the factory said it. So I backed it off a bunch because I knew it was way too much. All we can do, I guess, is fire it up. And I might have to take stuff apart or something, or figure out a way to bolt the carburetor on without the air cleaner on it, so I can get to that adjustment for the how fast this engine runs. The only way we're going to be able to tell is with the voltmeter. So AC volts. I want to just plug this into its outlet and fire it up and see how close we are. Okay, here we go. See if she'll start. I might have it way too slow. Well, she's a quiet little thing, isn't it? Yeah, I backed that thing way off. 41 volts is what we're doing. But like I said, I can't even see the screw with the air cleaner in place. There's some fine adjustments over here, but oh, wait a minute. It gets me close, but I'm out of adjustment at about 100 volts. You see the sparks? This thing needs to ground itself a little better than I've done it. Let me stick this back on the mount real quick. And we'll just try this one more time. So this is the ignition and the coil. And I just had it flopping, and it wasn't very happy about that. Pretty sure I was going to have to take this back apart again anyway, but let's get this in and ground it out and fire it back up. Good enough. See how easy it starts once it's ran for a second. So I'm glad I put that back on because it sure was running faster with the ignition grounded out than it was just flopping there. And we were getting in the neighborhood of 130 volts, so it is still needs a little bit of adjustment. But you know, I think we've kind of gone through this thing pretty good. I think I'll just end this video here. I think it's getting fairly lengthy. But we have a success here. We got the thing running, the carburetor's working good. We just got to dial in how fast it runs, and then I'll just do a nice cleanup on it. Just you know, soak it down with. I use Castrol Super Clean. We'll get it warmed up. We'll spray it down with Castle Super Clean. We'll hose it off. We'll dry it up. I'll rechange the oil. I do got to get an air filter for this thing because it didn't have one. It is gone. Straighten up some of the fins there. Give it a kind of a little detail, and I think I'll put this little boy for sale. So, but it's a runner, isn't it? It's a runner. Starts up just like a Honda, right? First pull. Oh yeah. So another successful little $40 generator. So thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing. If it's your first time to my channel, hit the subscribe button for me, please. And if you've been around for a little while, if you could share this video or my channel with some other folks, I would sure appreciate it. Thank you guys. Here's a little bonus footage. I grabbed a tool. Oops, wrong side. This is 105 watts. It's a hot knife. Plugged it into the generator there. Just kind of watching the voltage there. And it's doing all right. 114, 15. Yeah, it roams around in there. It's definitely working okay. Let it off. So these things don't regulate beautifully, not like the new ones do, but they do all right for what they are. So I've got this thing back hard on this side so I can get to that screw, and then I can make fine-tune adjustments out here. And my goal was to get it in the middle of the adjustment range. Shut that noisy thing off. My goal was to get this in the adjustment range where I had some play on both sides of it. So I got that screw readjusted. I kind of remembered about how many turns I adjusted it. I was thinking that was the way that somebody else fixed that, but evidently not. They probably just played with this here. So we're good to go. Going to clean it up, change the oil, and we're call it good. Nice little generator. Thank you guys again. We'll catch you on the next one.